All right. The thinnest covering of luck was on him like fresh dew. All right. So, first things that I want to highlight are that recurring word luck and the word like, because it is insinuating that is telling us that there is a simile here, because two things are being compared. It doesn't tell us the simile is here, but I read it, and I know that like is comparing two things, and it is a simile. So, the thinnest covering of luck was on him like fresh dew. So, we're comparing fresh dew to a thin covering of luck. That's a very... So, the thinnest covering of luck. So, by realizing this word, understanding this word thinnest, thinnest would refer to it's thin or not strong, so it's light. So if we're analyzing this, we would say that by using that adjective, the author is saying that he doesn't have much luck on him. Not much luck, but some. But he has some luck. And that is being compared to fresh dew. And what do we know about fresh dew? Well, from what I know about fresh dew is that it happens in the morning, in the early morning, but is gone by afternoon, or it only lasts so long. So it happens in the morning, only lasts a short period of time. So by understanding the two comparisons, this could be, in a sense, telling us or foreshadowing for us, this could be foreshadowing that Archie's luck is not going to last. Because by using the word thinnest, the author is saying there's not much luck. And by comparing it to fresh dew, we know that it happens early morning because it's really cold and all the water is on the ground is condensing and freezing almost. Kind of like frost, or not freezing necessarily, that's frost, but it's condensing through the humidity. So, but once the day starts, usually you only see it in the early morning, like 5 a.m. And then after that, it's not there anymore. So is this foreshadowing to tell us that his luck won't last? Possibly. We'll have to read more if we want to know. But we did learn a lot of important information from this sentence. We did learn possible foreshadowing, and we also learned that Archie's not considered to have much luck, and if he does have luck, it's most likely not going to last long. So let's create a hashtag for this sentence. I think the hashtag I'm going to do is not long luck. And this will also remind me of that reoccurring use of the word luck, and not long, considering that it's not going to last. Or I could say, there's a variety of hashtags I could use, but these are for yourself to help you understand and remember. Whilst he slipped in and out of consciousness, the position of the planets, the music of the spheres, the flap of a tiger moth's diaphanous wings in Central Africa, and a whole bunch of other stuff that makes shit happen, had decided it was second chance time for Archie. Somewhere, somehow, by somebody, it had been decided that he would live. Okay, first thing to do, highlight, circle, or underline things that have stood out to you as important, and we'll analyze them further when we get to them. So, as I read this, the thing that stood out the most to me in the beginning was, this is also two sentences, by the way. This is two sentences. For some reason, I was unable to separate all the sentences. Here, I put a blue line where the sentence switches, but the part that stood out the most to me was this last word, live. Additionally, whilst stood out to me. And this saying makes shit happen stood out to me. So, let's start with the beginning. So, whilst stood out to me because it seemed like a term that wouldn't be used. Whilst in this writing, it seemed just a little different of a word that wouldn't be used. But it's also important to know what whilst means. So, I think it also means while. So, while he slipped in and out of consciousness. So, it just was an interesting word choice by the author, and I'm more interested in why they chose that word. Maybe I need to research the more of the use of it and why they might have used it. Maybe it has a sense of more of a sense of sophistication, and that's why they decided to use it in the sentence. Something to consider. He slipped in and out of consciousness. So this is informative. We are learning. So we know that Archie's slipping in and out of consciousness because he's the only person that we've discussed thus far. So we know, and we already know that he's not very coherent. So he's slipping in and out of consciousness. This is information that's telling us it's happening. Now, there's lots of commas that I've noticed in this first sentence. So I'm going to circle them just so that I'm aware of all the commas that are in here. 1, 2, 3, for, okay. There's also a couple commas in the second sentence. There's 3, I believe. Oh, yes. All right. So now let's go back. The position, okay. Whilst he slipped in and out of consciousness. So while he's slipping in and out of consciousness, so this whilst is going past this. Okay, so while he's slipping out of consciousness, the position of the planets, the music of the spheres, the flap of a tiger moth's diaphanous wings in Central Africa, and a whole bunch of other stuff that makes shit happen has decided to times. Okay, so let's highlight some of these important things. So the first thing they mention is the position of the planets. So if we know anything about the position of the planets and its relation to all of these things all the words within these commas are saying it's referring to a whole bunch of other stuff that it's referring to what makes shit happen. This, what is written right here, what makes shit happen. This capital, what makes shit happen. So if we think about what makes shit happen, they're talking about causes, what causes some, or, cause and effect. This makes that happen. Doing this leads to that. So the position of the planets. Well, from what I know about the position of the planets, I know that it affects tide. The moon affects the tide. So, and then in astrology, lots of people believe that certain planets affect how they feel or how they behave. So this is a real belief. So how the planets affect, we can just say tides, for example, or emotions. So there's that. That's where that ties into how it affects and makes shit happen, per se. So the next one, music of the spheres. This is more difficult. So music of the spheres. If we're thinking about the spheres, we don't know what these spheres mean. Based on the previous position of the planets, maybe they're talking about planets. Maybe the author's considering the planets, or maybe the author's considering different groups. And so music of the spheres, or maybe they were trying to reference something more mystical. So we're not 100% sure what the music of the spheres is, but maybe we could research more about it. Maybe it would come up if we searched music of the spheres, and that would help us. Okay, so when looking at music of the spheres, it's actually an ancient philosophical concept that regards proportions in the movements of celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, and planets, as a form of music. So the music of the spheres, this is referencing the position of the planets and the movement of the planets. Because the movement of the planets that creates music, quote unquote. There we go. So, with that in mind, let's move on. It's just important that if you do have any questions or you are confused about anything, that you always have that resource to research. Just make sure that it's credible. All right, next part. Let's do blue. Flap of a tiger moth's diaphanous wings in Central Africa. Now, this got very specific. We were talking about celestial bodies and the planets, the position, the music that they make when they move. And now we're talking about a very specific insect and the movement of their wings. That's what the word flap is telling us. The word flap is telling us about the movement of the, and then this is a descriptor, which if we don't know what the diaphanous word means, we might want to look it up. So diaphanous diaphanous means light, delicate, and translucent. So it's the descriptor of the wings. And we can write that down so that we remember that it's a descriptor and what it means. Light, translucent. So maybe the next thing that we want to do is figure out what a tiger moth is. It's a very specific insect for the author to mention, so there must be something that's important about this tiger moth, because every choice is made for a reason. So a tiger moth just looks a certain way. It can be found in the US, Canada, and Europe. And it doesn't say much about its uniqueness, but it does look very unique. I can put a picture of one after this so that you can see what a tiger moth looks like. And although we may not know the purpose of it right now, it's still important that we understand that it was chosen for a reason that might come up later. All right. In Central Africa, this tells us where this tiger moth is located. Although it said that it lives in the US, there must be another reason why they chose Central Africa, which might also come up later in the text. So let's put a little rectangle around that. All right, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So we go from very specific with the tiger moth's diaphanous wings in Central Africa to a whole bunch of other stuff. Okay, and all of this stuff that was mentioned makes shit happen. Now, this makes shit happen stood out to me because just like the earlier unlucky that was capitalized when it didn't need to be, this is all capitalized. And it doesn't need to be. Makes shit happen. So this must be some belief, possibly, that Archie has. And he believes that all these things contribute and they make shit happen. They cause things to happen. Or maybe he just believes there are outside forces that contribute to why things are happening. And whatever he considers, all these things above and a bunch of other stuff, apparently, that makes shit happen, those outside sources have made the decision, so let's continue, have decided that it was second chance time for Archie. Okay, so this second chance, although it might not seem important right now, comes into play when we consider the next sentence. So second chance, we might think about this and say, well, what second chance? What second chance are we getting? Are we getting a second chance to win the lottery? Why are we, what was our first chance? Or why do we need a second chance? So that prompts that question, which then is answered in the last sentence. Somewhere, so annoying. Okay, oops. Somewhere, somehow, by somebody, it had been decided. So here again, decided. And once again, all this stuff, and whoever makes shit happen has decided. So this one's saying, make shit happen, decided. Whatever makes shit happen, decided. And here it's saying, in this part of the sentence, it's saying, well, let's think somewhere, and somebody. I mean, somehow, by somebody. So this is all referring back to who makes shit happen. So this somewhere can also be referenced back to, okay, he said Central Africa. Why? We're not sure. Is there a purpose? Maybe not, because they're saying, well, somewhere. We don't know where, but somewhere, and then somehow, so we don't know how this happens. So is it because of the position of the planets, or the movement of the planets? And is it because of the flap of the tiger moth's diaphanous wings? And by somebody. So is it the tiger moth? Or is there another factor? Is there a bigger person that has the ability to provide and to make these decisions? We're not sure. This could also reference, maybe somebody could reference religion. When people consider that somebody has the superior power to decide what happens to you. Maybe it's a superior power or a religious figure. Or it could just be the tiger moth. We're not sure. So this again is referencing those that make shit happen. It can be decided. It had been decided that he would live. So this last part, that he would live. So of course, when they say he, they're referencing the only character that we've met thus far, which is Archie. So this is saying Archie, whatever factors contributing to make shit happen, as we mentioned earlier, those forces have given Archie his second chance, as we mentioned up here, and his second chance is to live. Because they've decided he would live, and this is his second chance. So why does he need a second chance? Well, as we mentioned earlier, in an earlier sentence, he was inhaling those exhaust fumes on purpose with the Hoover tube, so he was trying to harm himself, possibly end his life, but he's been given a second chance at life. What second chance? Well, a second chance at life, because these forces had decided that he would live. So this is telling us that Archie is living. Archie lives through this event. However, we don't know how he survives or what happens, but we'd have to read further to find out. But at this point, we've determined that Archie lives. So to make it easier, I'm going to make my sentence, my summary hashtag for this sentence to be Archie lives. And then I'm going to put a second. I'll show you in a second. So Archie lives second, or that might be a little confusing, but maybe for me, I'll do second chance at life. That seems better. Second chance at life. So this tells me all that I need to know. It's telling me that Archie got his second chance at life, so he's surviving, even though he had tried to hurt himself. And it will get me to be like, oh, well, who decided he got a second chance? Well, the position of the planets, the movement of the planets, whatever makes shit happen. Whoever has the power, wherever, somehow, somewhere, something happened that had decided that he would survive. So now that we have done that, we are done, and we need to review. So zoom out and look at all of your hashtags for each sentence, or I know some of them were 2 sentences.